Okay. Oh, got it. All right. So guys, my name is Dezmine Washington. I kind of do some positive reinforcement training with my horses. I mostly try to educate some of y'all newer people into the equestrian world. You mostly know, or maybe you don't, I'm the owner of Booty Poppin' Ponies. We do a lot of fun stuff over there. And I'm really excited to talk about this.
Awesome. Well, I'll go next. My name is Michelle. I have been riding for 20 years now. I currently participate in endurance riding, trail riding. I do some dressage. I have a 5-year-old horse that has just been started. So his name's Louie. So me and Louie are working on some things. You can definitely check our progress on my Instagram. My Instagram is real simple. It's just michelle.q.rosemond. So you can find lots of pictures of me and Louie on there, lots of updates. And I'm super excited to be here and talk about this really important subject.
All right, my name's Amber Hayes. I've been riding horses for about 16 years. I do show jumping, dressage, hunter jumper. Recently, I was teaching lessons for a year out here in Maryland. And so, yeah, I basically just love riding, training horses, all of that. You can find me on Twitter at I am Amber Hayes, and then Instagram and TikTok at It's Amber Hayes.
Hey, now that we're all familiar with each other, well, any of y'all can choose, but let's start with talking about helmets, like in general, like what are they? Why are we wearing them? Why do you wear them? Doesn't matter what order y'all want to go in, but let's start there.
Let's go with the helmet wearers first.
Okay.
I'll go. For me, like, I don't really think about it that much. It was kind of like what I was taught when I was little. And then it just made sense. Like, as I grew up, like, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, it makes sense. I'm gonna keep wearing my helmet. Like, I've seen some bad falls, so I know the risks that are involved. And then, like, the only bad thing that you get out of it is helmet hair. So, I mean, helmet hair or breaking your neck, falling off a horse.
I agree. I kind of grew up the same way. The barn that I took lessons in, we had some riders that were the elite riders, and the owner of the facility, she did not wear a helmet. But as I was taking lessons, I was required to wear a helmet. The owner actually had a really terrible fall, and she's been riding for, decades. She had a really terrible fall, and after that, she now wears a helmet all the time. So I don't have as much experience as she does. So if she's gonna wear a helmet every time she rides, whether it's a familiar horse or an unfamiliar horse, then I feel like I should wear a helmet. And I have, done some research and things like that. And I have seen like Olympic riders take terrible falls and, have serious health consequences because of it. So because of that, it's just a no-brainer.
I guess I'll go in real quick. I am not a helmet wearer, and it's not because I don't believe in them. We're actually going to talk about it later on in this, little meeting. But I grew up Western riding or ranching, so I dealt with like cattle with all the cowboys. So wearing a helmet was totally not the thing. Like, maybe we'll poke fun at you if you have it, but not really, because it's usually the kids that would wear it. But yeah, I currently do not own a helmet, but again, we're gonna talk about it later because I got all the facts about why we need to be wearing them. It's super important.
Absolutely. So when I was started out riding in elementary school, my dad started me out really young, and he always made me wear a helmet on the trail rides. So I do trail rides and I ride Western, and now I also ride bareback, but he always made me wear a helmet. And at the time, I never had an equestrian helmet. I had a bicycle helmet, which is not appropriate for horseback riding. And some people don't know that. So like all of my older pictures is literally me on a big old horse and a bicycle helmet. But he was just trying to be like, like this is dangerous, and he wanted to keep me safe. So that is why I wear one today. And I'm so glad that I'm so glad that my dad like instilled that in me, like wear your helmet. It doesn't matter, you know, like if you trust that horse or not, or if it's like bomb-proof horse, wear your helmet, because what if someone else, you know, has a horse and they can't control whatever's going on, and then you end up having an accident, or like literally anything can happen. So I've been wearing my helmet and trying to be the example for other people to wear theirs. So which brings me into the next point. Let's talk about stereotypes. Oh my goodness. It's like, I hear everything. Oh, you must be scared. That's why you're wearing a helmet. Or you don't know what you're doing. That's why you're wearing a helmet. Like, what are some other stereotypes that y'all have heard?
I'll probably say that's the same things that I've heard, like for people who are, I'll say people who are against wearing it. Because I feel like not everybody who doesn't wear helmets is against it. But for the people who are like against it, or like don't really see the point in it, they're kind of like, oh, well, are you scared? You think you're gonna fall off? Like, you're not gonna fall off. Why are you wearing a helmet? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the same thing. Like, you must be scared. You must not know what you're doing. You must be new to riding. You know what I mean? Those type of things.
I would say for my end, it was definitely like, oh, you're not like a real, because I know cowboy and cowgirl, that word holds a lot of weight to a lot of like Western people. Like, oh, you're not going to cowboy cowgirl up if you got that helmet on. A real one will be riding with the hair and the wind and all this other stuff. It's like, that just sounds stupid. I don't know if that's what that means. I don't know if I want to be part of that group, which it isn't, but it's a stereotype.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't quite know where that came from, you know, like talking down to people who wear helmets. And I know for me, because I did grow up in a predominantly Black culture a predominantly Black equestrian culture, nobody else was wearing them. Like, even as an adult, it's either me and like 3 other people who have helmets on. And I've seen, like, at our halfway points on the trail rides, which is just when we take a break on the rides, and I was standing like across from someone, and a horse out of nowhere just reared up and it hit this man in his head. So it's like he wasn't even on the horse and he still got hurt. So we had to find like an ambulance had to come out and get him and all of that. So it's just like, it's super smart. And I do teach horseback riding lessons for kids. And there are some little kids that come, and even if they don't ride, I'm still like, let's put a helmet on them, because they're so tiny. And these horses, a horse's head is like huge, you know, and if it brushes up against them, it might knock them out. So even when we're not riding, I'm still like, y'all put a helmet on, because you just never know. Like, anything could happen. I love horses to death. They are so sweet. And yes, they are very therapeutic and they are amazing to look at, but they are also big. They are very big animals. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to be like, y'all, these stereotypes are just myths. Like, just because you wear a helmet does not mean that you're afraid. It means that you're being smart. It means that you're thinking about your future. It means that you're keeping yourself safe and your horse safe. Like, I could just go on and on and on. Anything that y'all want to add to that, so we can put some affirmations out there about wearing helmets?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like what Amber said. It's like there's nothing negative that can really happen from you wearing a helmet. The only negative is that your hair might get a little messed up, but there's no other downside to that. I mean, the benefits outweigh, you know, any of the negative, outweigh your hair getting messed up. So, you know, why not? Why not protect yourself?
What did I want to say? Sorry, I wanted to get the right thing right, but kind of going back though, Caitlin, what you were talking about, this man was getting struck in the head. He wasn't even riding the horse. I mean, what I found about I have 4 sources for this whole entire thing, but there are so many. I just didn't want to like babble on, because they all said about the same thing. About, yeah, sure, 60% of these injuries happen while riding, but it also said about 20% of them are when you're just straight up handling the horse. So definitely, I was totally like, yeah, he got struck in the head. That's exactly the type of examples they're talking about. This horse hoof or head hitting you in the head. If you wore a helmet, if you wore a helmet, it would have, if not, slowed down what was happening, but definitely it would have kept him from getting any type of brain damage or any sort of fracture to the skull, anything like that.
Yeah. I kind of think of our sport as a contact sport, like just kind of, because it's not really a contact sport until you make contact with the ground. But when you do, you're going to smack the ground pretty hard. So you might as well have a helmet on.
I believe that.
Have y'all ever fallen off a horse before?
I've fallen off. It's the weirdest thing. I'm very happy about it, but it's been about 4 or 5 times. I don't know how that is, but it's only been 4 or 5 times.
The same with.
I fall off all the time. I fall off all the time, and because I'm a trail rider, and my horse is green, so all kinds of things happen out there. I mean, just my last fall on him was because he got branches stuck in his tail, and it was the first time he ever had branches stuck in his tail, so that was a thing. And then training and dressage, your seat getting a little different and stuff. So I fall all the time, so I keep my helmet on deck.
I've fallen off a few times, and one time, which I've talked about on my social media platforms, I was riding my Mustang, and he just took off running in the middle of the woods and left the other person I was riding with, and he jumped over a log and a ditch, and I rolled off. Well, I fell off, and my head hit the log. I had on a helmet, and there's a dent in that helmet. So imagine if I did not have it on.
Whoa.
Exactly. Man.
Yeah.
Probably saved your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely saved my life. So I put those on, and I'm just like, I don't care who'd be like, she looks silly. Oh, well, I would have been looking real silly that day had I not had it on.
Horses are so unpredictable. You can never really know for sure. Like one time I kind of set myself up to fall off. I was on this horse bareback. He was like 19 or 20, but he was one of those like older horses that are like super hot. And I had my little cousin with me who was in like this viewing area above the arena, and they had like a freezer up there. So I was like, oh, go get like an icicle out of there or whatever. And I told him that like right as I was walking under the thing. So he scooted the chair back, and it made a sound, and the horse says zoom, and he went forward, I went backwards. But I had my helmet on, so I didn't really get hurt or anything. But yeah, I set myself up for that one.
You just never know. Like, you just never know. And a lot of people who think like, well, I'm just a good rider, I would like to say that you were very lucky that nothing did happen. So do not keep taking that for granted. So the stereotypes with helmets, sometimes I feel like some of this might just come from the fact that a lot of us can't even find helmets that fit. Like I think it's like, they don't even make helmets for me, so why am I wearing it? And I say that because I have locks, and my locks are not that thick, but there are some people who have different hairstyles, like different ethnic hairstyles, and their helmets are not just fitting. They're not fitting properly. I've had students who have came, and I'm like, we had to redo their hair like right at the barn because they came in like Afro puffs, or they have these bigger braids, and the helmet is literally just sitting here. If the helmet is sitting up here, it's not protecting anything, or it's pushing it back. And it's just like, we might as well not even have it on. Like, it's not going to do anything. If anything, that might hurt you if something happens, even worse. So how do y'all style y'all's hair when y'all wearing a helmet? For me, like how my hair is now, I don't know how well y'all can see this, but it's kind of braided. My locks are braided in the front, and then I have to put on a scarf at night so it will hold it down. That way in the morning it's pretty flat and I can just put the helmet on. But if I don't do that and my hair is like all bulky, it is not going to fit.
For me, I have to keep my hair like this, or like I'll put in a ponytail or a bun, and then I can fit like my regular English helmet over it. And then I say English helmet, like there's a different one for Western. So I can fit my regular helmet over it. But then if I have braids in or something like that, or like if I have my hair just like curly or whatever, then I'll have to have this big Troxel helmet where you like twist it in the back. And it's kind of weird because in English, certain barns are like, they can just be snobby. And I'm like, why do you really care what helmet I have on? If I can ride this horse, I can ride it in a purple, yellow, black, whatever helmet. Like, it really doesn't make a difference. But some people really do care. And like, when I was in college, I was on my riding teams and I had to stop competing in shows because I had braids and I could only wear the purple Troxel, and that's not an approved helmet. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna wear my braids. But I mean, I could ride in lessons and stuff, but I couldn't show.
That I want to talk about that because that helmet in particular that you're talking about is the only helmet that works for me.
Yep.
So my hair is natural. So obviously if I were to go to the barn today, I would have to probably squish this puff down to make it happen. Maybe try and, you know, get it down into maybe like a low two puffs and things like that. So on a regular basis, usually when I wash my hair and, you know, condition everything, I slick it all back into a low ponytail. If you know anything about natural hair as it shrinks, it goes up. So obviously it's wash day because my hair is all the way up. So you know, on days like this, it's harder for me to get the helmet on. But I did want to talk about that Troxel helmet because I see so many people, Black equestrians, that if they are helmet wearing equestrians, this Troxel Spirit helmet is the only one that will work for them because it does have that dial in the back. And I've been wearing the same brand of helmet since I was 10 years old because it is the only one. So even if I do want to go and get a Sam Shield, you know, get something really nice, I cannot because it does not work for my hair, the way my hair is. And as we're talking about now, we do different things with our hair all the time. I can't afford to have 2 Sam Shield helmets. You know what I mean? So I can't afford that. So I need one helmet that is going to be able to do what I needed to do for all different types of hairstyles. And the Troxel has been the only one that can do that for me. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know exactly what helmet you're talking about. And that's the only one I use.
That's the one that I have.
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
This,
I know it's the one that you have.
I have this other one. It's like this, it looks like huge. It's like a purple, shiny, like plastic helmet.
So Troxel redid their design of helmets. So that may be the older style of it. This Spirit helmet that we have is the newer design they just came out with in like 2020. I know because
yeah, I have an old one.
Yeah,
Ovation also makes a helmet with a dial. They're like cheapest run of helmets. That one has the dial as well.
Yes, very similar to the new Spirits. They're very similar shapes. So that particular style of helmet is the only one that will work for me. Really unfortunate because I see so many cute Sam Shield helmets that I want that are like kind of like the bigger dome type helmet that are more stylish.
Yeah.
But they don't work. So
I'm so excited we talked about this because to be honest, like I was telling y'all, I don't ride with a helmet, but it was for this specific reason. First, it was a money reason. Now I'm an adult and I got adult money. I can go do that. But I'm hearing from other equestrians, like, yeah, they don't make helmets that really like fit for us. They need to fit a certain way. And they, you know, some of them you have to do regulation when you're showing. I don't ride show, but I wanted to be the most safest. So I was writing down, I was like, yep, this brand, this one, this type right here. See, this little talk is helping me out so much. And I know a bunch of other people too. Cause I mean, even though this is one particular helmet, this is a start. I am excited.
Listen, you may already have this in your notes, Dezmine, but I know MIPS is a big thing with helmets. So it's like a qualification. And so, yeah, I can definitely look up what that stands for, but MIPS helmets are like the gold standard. That's what you want to have. I do not think that Troxel is a MIPS standard helmet, which is unfortunate because now we're talking about something way more than style, fashion, things like that. Now we're subjected to a brand of helmet. I love Troxel. I love them. But we're subjected to a brand of helmet that only works for our head shape and hairstyles. That's not as safe. It's not the best option. We're not able to get the best and greatest things because of we're not catered to in that way. So
That's the reason why I couldn't compete that time in college, because it wasn't approved.
yep.
And I'm glad you said that, Michelle, because I emailed one researcher that was brought to my attention. She's researching equestrian helmets. And I was just saying, like, is there even any research that says this is what happens when someone with ethnic hair and different hairstyles, this is what happens when they fall? And she told me no, like she found one article. I haven't opened it yet. I just saw her email, but she found one article, like only one. So moving forward, we will be talking with her to like figure out how we can further this research, because if we don't even know, like, what happens if I have beads in my hair, or if a child has beads in their hair and they fall? What happens if I have cornrows? What happens if I have locks? What happens if I just decide I'm going to force my afro in it? Because people think, oh, well, it must be extra cushion. That is not extra cushion just because I have more hair. That is not how this works. But like, what happens if I do that? Because I used to stuff my afro before I had locks. I had an afro. I used to stuff my afro in my helmet. It would just be like afro out here, helmet. Like, what happens, and like trying to force it closed and all of that. But yeah, the chicks agree. There's not enough research on it. And yes, we can say this is going to keep you safe, but we don't know what really happens, like we know with the other helmets. And I also saw someone say that this is not just the issue in equestrian sports. This is an issue with motorcycle helmets, with bicycle helmets, wherever else people wear helmets.
Yep.
So it's like, they know that there are multiple people who wear helmets, but they're only looking at one like style, and it's not including this. So we're going to change that. That's why we have started this conversation, to bring more awareness to it, so we can actually get that research done. Because again, you don't want people to say, well, they don't even make helmets for me. Like, why am I going to wear that? And that's probably why my dad had me wearing a bicycle helmet. He was probably trying to find those like old, like those really old English sports equestrian helmets that have like the Velcro. Yeah, the little ball thing at the top. I'm sorry if somebody is wearing those. I'm just saying, I know that don't fit my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, y'all are answering so beautifully. And we already talked about like what brand we are using. Would anybody happen to know, I guess, any statistics around like deaths by not wearing a helmet while riding horses?
I don't know.
You have
Right there.
Oh,
Handy notebook.
Yeah, come on, Dezmine, with a notebook.
Say, it's one of my favorite lines, but it's not good. Again, from Brainline, it said about head injuries are 60% of equestrian related deaths and are 18% of equestrian related injuries. And then I already spoke how 80% of these injuries happen in the saddle, and it actually occurs most when there's people who are riding for pleasure. So when you're not competing, this is talking about most of them just hanging out, having a great time under probably their bomb-proof horse, who knows? But, stuff happens. Like Caitlin was saying, she was just out riding and her horse is taking off and she hit her head on a log. I think about that constantly because I'm up in the hills working cattle and I'm going up mountains and whatever, and I'm just having a grand old time with my head out. And I'm looking at these statistics. I mean, I've always known them, but it's always haunting, like, dang, this could really happen. And, I just was misguided on where to go to get these type of helmets. But yeah, it also said people with 5+ years more of horse experience are actually more likely to sustain these injuries, which is kind of interesting, but also makes sense because, people who are new, you would think they would be more accident prone, but they're like really careful and, they probably have a nice little horse under them, where us, I would say, we're less fearful. So we're more likely to take those chances. Therefore, we're more likely to get these type of injuries.
We get comfortable.
Yeah, we get really comfortable, extremely. And then from Equimed, it also said about 92% of these are soft tissue injuries. I'm talking about the head. Fractures are about 57, and then 15% are concussions. It's just insane because these are the statistics that, you know, are telling us, hey, equestrian sports can actually be really dangerous if you don't wear a helmet. And there really is a stigma saying you don't know what you're doing. You're just a little scaredy cat out here. And it's like, bro, I could die. I can get a fracture. I wanted to share this story, and I know this person had it all out. I just don't like, you know, speaking names, but there's one person in particular who I know who was just messing around with their own horses, just closing a gate. And somehow, I guess the horse kicked the gate and they ended up getting severe brain damage. Now, this person still actually competes with their horses and is doing well, but they've talked about, like, you know, they're not fully the person who they've been. Now, granted, you know, they were just doing regular horse chores, but this could really happen anywhere. And it really is extremely important that we get this type of word out because, you know, there's such a huge population of people who don't wear helmets. Last thing I'll talk about real quick, it actually said English was the more, what's it called? More dangerous style, but honestly, I grant that just because I think English is more of a worldwide type of deal versus a Western Australian saddles and all that. And I also know, you know, English, they lack a horn. Yeah, they lack a horn. So, you know, you might fall back, fall this way, fall forward. But still at the same time, I don't think this statistic should tell people of other different saddles or different disciplines like, oh, hey, see, you know, the English riders out here are wearing helmets and they're getting the most danger. So they obviously need to do all this, when really it's like, no, it's just more people ride this way. You guys are still doing dangerous stuff. It's just misrepresented. So I did want to bring that up just in case someone saw that statistic and be like, oh, that's why they're wearing helmets. Because I've also heard someone make the argument like, oh, if you wear a helmet, you feel like you have invincibility, therefore you're more likely to do dangerous stuff, which I was like,
Perfect.
I don't know about that one. But yeah, no, just to bring that statistic up, just to show people like that one is a little bit misrepresented, but we definitely universally as equestrians, we should be wearing helmets for the majority of us, at least working with our horses.
That also makes me think, oh, what were we gonna say? Oh, that makes me think about like vest. So like I bought a vest for doing eventing years ago, and then it's like, I don't know, some equestrian stuff can be so hard to find. So like it's really hard to find a lot of eventing barns or like horses that are that you're able to do eventing on. So I bought the vest, wore it like once in college, never wore it again. I still have it, but I'm like thinking about this, I'm like, why don't we wear a vest? Like, I know helmets is already one thing that people debate, but I've seen a lot of falls where people get stepped on or like breaking ribs, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's reasonable, but I don't understand why we only wear it doing like the more extreme things when we could really have those same injuries from like a standstill and your horse like spooks, or maybe your horse trips and falls on you.
Is that what the vests are for?
Yeah, it's like, because like if you're doing eventing, you're like jumping over ditches, you're jumping over logs into water, or like there's jumps inside the water. So like horses have had like at the higher levels, they have like a lot of I forgot what they're called. They're like somersault or like cartwheel falls, where the horse literally does like a somersault and they'll like fall on the rider. And so horses and riders have died doing that so many times.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was fashion, but no, great.
Yeah, I never knew what vests were for, and somebody was about to answer. If you don't mind coming back up.
Yeah, so those protective vests are actually required on racetracks for exercise riders and jockeys, because of course horse racing is dangerous. Trampling is a big risk, falling, etc. And yeah, in eventing at a certain level, I think it's once you reach like beginner novice or novice, they do require you to wear a vest, and vests do have the same, what is it? Certifications, not the exact same like acronym as the helmets do, but they have their own certification they have to pass to be an approved vest to be used in competition. But I do agree, like for things like show jumping, and I think even bull riders and bronc riders, a lot of them are starting to wear more protective vests and helmets with like face guards and stuff like that. But of course, that's one of those more gritty sports where some may be looked down upon for wanting to protect themselves. But
Yeah.
I agree. I think vests could do a lot for us that helmets can't.
With the trampling, I actually have a story about that. I wasn't even riding. It was my first time, like when I was younger, going to get a horse from out of the field. And this lady went with me. And I went to go get like this pony, and there was all the bigger horses in the field. And the pony didn't get along with the bigger horses. So he was like, the field was like a big hill, and then way at the bottom there was like more grass. So he was at the bottom, and I'm coming back up to the hill with the pony, and then all the other horses were standing there like waiting for him. And all of a sudden he just takes off. I fall face forward into the mud, and there's just all these hooves running around me and stuff. So I could have got like trampled out there.
And
I
that's
didn't
so
have-
scary. That's terrifying.
Yeah, I
Like
didn't
as a
have
small
any-
child, as anyone.
Yeah, I didn't have any protective wear on, because I mean, who would expect anything like that dramatic to happen? You're just going to get a horse out of the field. But it was like, it was really slippery and muddy out there. It was like deep mud. And I mean, luckily I didn't get trampled, but they could have slipped or anything could have happened.
Right.
Right. And I think that's a really good example of just how being in horses in general is just dangerous. Like
Yeah.
we can do everything we can to be safe, but there is always a risk because they are an independent creature. They are their own mind, you know, they're unpredictable.
Yeah.
So much bigger than us, you know.
Definitely. One thing that was brought up in those amazing list and wild list of statistics was concussions. A lot of people don't even know when they have had a concussion. I don't know the statistic on that, but I do know that that's a fact. People don't even know how to recognize signs of a concussion. I have not had one, but one time my dad was at the barn and I think he was riding a horse, and he came off and he hit his head on a fence before he hit the actual ground. And we knew nothing about it. And I don't know how long like he was out there laying on the ground or whatever, but it's like he had a whole concussion. You
I
know,
had the
and we
same
didn't
thing
know-
happen to me.
and we didn't know about this until later on, you know, because like nobody was around. So that's the other thing. Being around horses by yourself, you might as well put a helmet on. If nobody's out there, you know, out there with you, and always tell someone if you're going out, tell them so they know, like, hey, if you haven't heard from me in 2 hours, y'all need to come bring the dogs, come and find me. That's why a lot of people don't even go riding by themselves, because anything could happen.
Yeah.
And I think like when you mention it, it brings a bigger point. It makes me think of a bigger point. Helmets are not only for, you know, just you and your particular safety. Imagine, you know, coming out into the field and seeing somebody down like that, you know, seeing somebody laying out there. What you do and how you take care of yourself affects people at the barn, it affects your family, it affects your friends, it affects everybody. So you owe it to not only yourself, but to the people that you ride with, the people around you, to protect yourself and to do everything you can to minimize any type of risk, especially like Caitlin said, if you're by yourself, you know.
To Caitlin's point about like people not knowing when they have concussions, another thing that I feel like is really popular in the horse community is this whole notion of if you're not going to the hospital, you're getting back on the horse. So it's also kind of like we all have to be tough and macho, and it's like, oh, I'm fine, whatever. Like I've seen so many times where like it's just common, you fall off, you get back on, which yeah, that's fine. But if someone actually is injured, like pay attention to that, or like make sure they're actually good, not just like, oh, you'll be fine, just walk it off. I've seen that so many times where people have a fall that looks really bad. And they're like, oh, I'm good. Because they don't want to seem like they're weak. But I feel like that's so bad because then like you might hear from them later and they're like, oh yeah, I ended up breaking a bone. Like one time I had an adrenaline rush when I fell off and I got back on the horse, jumped and everything. And I went home and like in the middle of the night, I woke up in pain and I couldn't turn my arm. I had sprained my wrist. I mean, it wasn't like anybody's fault that I got back on because I didn't know. I wasn't in pain at the moment. But there's a lot of times where you have that adrenaline rush because like I said earlier, when we fall off, like we hit the ground hard, or like it's not like you're falling off of a little bike or you're falling off of a scooter. You're falling at like a higher speed sometimes. So you might not actually feel the injury at first.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say after that, because that's so important, like you don't have to man up or cowgirl up, cowboy up, like take care of yourself. And then there's just so much, because what if you're the only person who takes care of your horses and you're deciding to cowgirl up, but you're really hurt, like again, minimizing the risk, like Michelle says. Y'all, this has been such a beautiful conversation, and I know we could just go on and on and on, and we're definitely going to have more of these, and I will open up the chat. I know Hannah has some more things to say, but if anyone else has something to say, y'all can say it now, or anything that y'all want to bring up. I'm just so excited that we finally had this first conversation just to talk about this.
I wanted to bring up 2 examples that I have for y'all just about what y'all are saying. And I don't want to make it too dark, but I just want to really drive home the point that this is something for everybody. And this is something that everybody can benefit from. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Courtney King. She was an Olympic dressage rider. She had made the Olympics in 2008. Really, everybody was really hopeful for her to do a lot of really great things with horses. She was out schooling her horse at home, and the horse just tripped, y'all. Horse just tripped, and she fell off, and she got a severe brain injury. So she's lost control, some control of her limbs and things like that. So now she's come back to the ring as a para rider. You can go on YouTube and you can see some of her first rides coming back as an equestrian. She was doing some para dressage, simple walk patterns and things like that. But just a simple decision to not wear a helmet that day on a horse that she had been riding for a long time, just doing some schooling, and he just tripped. And, it changed the whole trajectory of her life and her career. Also, just bringing home the point that you mentioned earlier about concussions, and just really just taking a second to assess what has happened. At a barn that I rode at, a girl, she fell off, and we suspect she had a concussion and she had some injuries. She seemed like she was okay. She got on a horse the next day, fell off again, most likely exacerbated what happened the day before, and she actually passed away. So, she was declared brain dead. So these are the things that we have to really think about. This is not something, hopefully we can get to a point where the fashion keeps up with the safety. But until then, it's really something we got to just think about, taking care of ourselves and making sure that we can ride again the next day, and just, take care of ourselves. So that's all I want to say.
And thank you for sharing that, because it's important. Like, this is real stuff.
Yeah, I think trainers can play a really big role in that, because a lot of times that's what ends up fostering that whole toughen up, get back on the horse thing, because you have trainers out here that are really pushing these kids. And I say all the time, like, trainers are pretty much like God at their barns, because you're at a barn in the middle of nowhere. So you have this trainer that everyone looks up to. Whatever they say goes. That's how it is at like every barn that I've been to. And it's kind of like, why are we like blindly following this person just because they ride horses? Like I don't understand. So I think a lot of trainers need to take more responsibility to make sure that they're creating a safer environment and making more like knowledgeable riders.
I think we all have that responsibility too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We all do. We all need to get a notepad like Des.
Yeah. I got some sticky notes. But you're right. Like, that is so true, because I mean, the trainers are introducing these kids to horses, they're setting the tone. When we're out and people see our social media pages, and y'all know TikTok is like running the equestrian world right now, and it's some crazy stuff that people are sharing, but it's like, y'all, we gotta get out there. And I think starting with this research and getting the brands and the researchers to be like, hey, we actually do want helmets and we want to protect ourselves. So thank y'all again. Is there anybody who is watching that wants to add anything to this conversation before we sign off?
Yeah. Hi again. My name is Hannah. And first of all, I just wanted to thank you and the rest of the hosts for putting this together, and just, you did a really good job selecting these women from different backgrounds and stuff like that. Everyone is obviously very knowledgeable, and it's just super cool to see all these different backgrounds and the points of like where everybody came from and started are totally valid and makes complete sense. You know, if you grew up more ranchy, Western, that was your family's lifestyle, you probably like didn't have a helmet because that was, you know, everyday stuff. You probably did it for work, you know, compared to getting started in a lesson barn where helmets are required, you know, insurance, kids, etc. But the biggest thing I wanted to mention is that helmets themselves don't actually protect against concussions. They maybe a little bit, but when you get a concussion, it's when your brain rattles around in your skull and hits the walls of your skull. And a helmet can prevent impact, but if you can very much still sustain a concussion. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And also, they aren't a save all, but they really, really, really can be. There are very specific spots on your head that get hit wrong, and it's just game over. I really liked the examples in talking about wearing helmets around horses while on the ground. I have a close friend from a barn I used to board at, and she sustained a really bad traumatic brain injury years ago from a trailer accident. And so, unfortunately, she suffered a handful of other concussions since then. But because of this, she doesn't come to the barn without her helmet on. I mean, no matter what, if she's around horses, she keeps that helmet on. She tries very, very hard to protect her head. And there's another girl I know who's actually a little bit younger than me. I'm 24, and she fell off a couple years ago, got a concussion, recovered from that, and she was back at the barn, and I saw it happen where she was brushing off her horse's legs, and her horse kind of, you know, took a step with the front leg and got her right in the temple with the knee, and that just reset her all the way back to like her initial head injury and then some. So I think it's really important, if you already have or had a brain injury, you really should wear a helmet around horses, because you can get kicked. Anything can happen. Dang it, I can't remember what else I had to say, but yeah, I think that is all that I've got for now. But yeah, it is important. I understand why people don't wear helmets. Oh, I remember the issue with hair and fitting. That's something I never really thought about before. I do remember on Twitter there was like a lot of controversy, people talking about like, hey, you know, you can't like just stuff your hair up in your helmet, because in English showing you have to put your hair in like a little hairnet at the nape of your neck. And if you have too much hair, you gotta like stuff it up into your helmet, and that affects the fit of your helmet, thus negating the safety of it. And if, you know, you are African American and you have, you know, really big curly hair, braids and beads and stuff like that, that like has not been taken into consideration by like helmet makers and stuff like that. And you know, what are people supposed to do with their hair? It just negates the purpose of the product if people can't like utilize it properly. And I think that's something really important to bring up and to push for in helmet design, and just, you know, bring awareness to it. And again, thank you all for posting this and putting this on. This is super cool, really helpful, and really cool to see other people concerned about the issue as well.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, thank
Can
you,
you guys-
Hannah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm like on my phone in my car. I actually just like came from my lesson this morning. So I just want to say, or this afternoon now, I guess, this is amazing because I'm super new to riding. I started in September. So I'm like very new, and that has been like my biggest issue is helmets with my hair. I do like the box braids, and I had locks in like a week ago, and I end up taking them out just because it's so difficult to ride with them. So thank you for the helmet recommendations, because I'm gonna go get one. So yeah, just want to say thanks. Like, this is awesome. So
Problem. Thanks for joining.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm in Minnesota, so that's why I am dressed like this. It is
No, I'm in Minnesota too. Sorry to
Oh.
interrupt.
that's amazing. Yeah, it's 4 degrees. So
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for making that decision, because yeah, it is hard. And like Hannah said as well, like we have, if people are going to pay the money, like we need stuff that actually works, you know, like
Yeah.
stuff that is designed for us. Because I don't know if y'all have seen Dezmine's videos, but she changes her hair like all the time.
I was just gonna say
Like
that.
she would need
Dezmine
like
switches it
3
up.
different helmets just to satisfy how many different styles she does.
That's about how many I have.
Oh,
I
see?
got a helmet for each occasion.
Yeah, and like these helmets are not cheap. They are not like, you know, $50, $20. They are up there.
The Troxel is about the best one for a good price range.
I
So
think the Ovation one is pretty good too. I think they're like $40-$50, just their base model.
Mhm.
Last I looked. So I think that's a really versatile. It might not be show approved, but like if you're getting into riding, it's versatile, it's affordable, it's safe, you know.
that's what I have right now. I have the Ovation one with the dial on the back. So
Those dials, man, I think they're called Flex Fit. Those dials are lifesavers.
Yeah,
I would
lifesavers.
buy a helmet with those
Yeah.
dials.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna hold y'all much longer. We are definitely going to have more conversations like this, and we are definitely going to find someone to talk about concussions and what to do if we do fall off a horse, or if we see someone else fall off a horse. Because I can only imagine like your first time riding and something happens, and what if something happens to your trainer or the person that's guiding you on the trail, and you don't know what to do. So we will definitely have those conversations like that in the future. Thank y'all. I love this so much, and this was beautiful. All of y'all are beautiful. Keep riding horses and be safe.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for putting this all together.
Oh, no problem.
I love this.